Hey, so this is kind of a follow-up on the video that I made yesterday about the Netflix series, The Ed Gein Story. And I wanted to follow up on it by citing the case of Jeffrey Dahmer. And that's because I found that Ryan Murphy's production of the Dahmer case was much more compelling and powerful than what I've seen so far of the Ed Gein case. And in fairness, when I started watching the Jeffrey Dahmer story on Netflix, um, it was, it was stomach churning, it was grotesque, it was very much in the style of Ryan Murphy, his background having done Nurse Ratched and American Horror Story and things like that. It is meant to be gruesome and gory. So I was concerned about the sensationalism of it and the way that Dharma would be portrayed. That I felt kind of hesitant about it because I wasn't really interested in the story from the point of view of Jeffrey Dahmer, and a lot of what was included in the story, the overarching narrative, is provided by Dahmer himself, by his confessions that he made on tape after he was arrested. But the reason that I thought that the Ed Gein story would be kind of resonant for me was because I did find that the way that the case of Jeffrey Dahmer was treated by Ryan Murphy was interested in really exploring and understanding the victim's point of view. There's not so much the stories of the victims, but kind of really bringing to life what the victims went through. So, in particular, I'm talking about the incident where a child, a 14-year-old boy, managed to escape Dharma, was found by two African American women on the street who called the police and were very concerned about him. And when the police arrived, they were kind of talked down by Dharma, saying that actually this was his 18-year-old boyfriend and he was drunk. So it's the issue that two African American women weren't believed over one tall white man who is claiming something which seems suspicious. And that boy was sent back to Dharma by the police and was subsequently killed. And also, it's true that his brother was another victim of Dharma, but he's somebody who survived. The social justice aspect to that is really important. Dharma lived in not just that they were poor communities, but they were poorer multicultural communities where he was confident that he would be able to carry out his activities without being detected. And he was right, because he believed that law enforcement didn't care about young gay men. And they especially wouldn't care about young gay men who were from marginalised communities, which were poorer and multicultural. So that was interesting. That's important. How did this man get away with doing this for so long? He killed 17 men and boys of a period between 1978 and 1991. These, these are relevant points and questions that are still important to us today. These are still issues that affect communities. Certainly in London, where I live, this is certainly an issue. So, looking at it through the perspective of the impact on communities and the impact on families was really interesting to me. That's the difference between the way that the Dahmer case is being treated compared to the Ed Gein story. And the problem with the Ed Gein story is that it's primarily a story about a man who hated women, and it tries to draw conclusions about why that would be. But the conclusions are too heavily influenced by Hollywood. But they're also it's uncomfortable because it's also influenced by, it feels like pandering to a male audience, that it has to be slightly titillating and it has to be slightly eroticized in order to really kind of garner any interest from men. rather than looking at it more in terms of the way that Dahmer's case was treated. You know, this was a man who was really a recluse to all intents and purposes. He had a warped and quite bizarre relationship with his mother, which has been really over analysed. Remember, this was during an era where Freud's view on psychology and psychoanalysis was seen as the norm. This was a period in time where psychoanalysis, which is different to psychology, was really the kind of go to by a predominantly white male clinical profession. So it's not a coincidence that somebody like Alfred Hitchcock looked at the story of Ed Gein and thought, well, that's an Oedipus complex, because everything was an Oedipus complex at the time. Hitchcock was known for being kind of interested in psychological drama, thrillers. That's part of the way that he worked. So he has taken a big lend from Freud in a lot of his work. So that is not accurate. That is not a realistic depiction of what was going on for Ed Gein. The things that are interesting about it are that he hunted the people that were close to him. He killed working class women who were just sort of trying to make a living, and he also desecrated the bodies of women who had nothing to do with him. He treated them like objects that he could really manipulate and mold. It's about power and control. Okay, it's that simple. And I'm really tired of the over speculation about how complex these characters were, and was it because they read too much graphic content, or they were exposed to too many inappropriate films when they were younger. These are men who just did what they wanted. And I know that people will say, oh, you don't understand the complexities of it. I understand that there are a variety of variables at play that really have an impact on anyone's behaviour. But I don't accept that the crimes of men during any period can justifiably be minimised by placing some of the blame and the responsibility elsewhere. I have a real problem with that. So really coming back to Gein's psychosis, his pathology being a result of the relationship with his mother is unfounded, and it's based on the pop psychology of the age. Trying to make these characters more interesting than they are, that idea, there was something about that with Dahmer where it was more like he just wanted them to stay with him. He was just lonely, and it's a similar sort of vibe with Ed Gein. Oh, poor guy, he was just lonely. He just wanted a girlfriend. He just wanted a boyfriend. No, they wanted to control people. Dahmer wanted to use his victims as zombies. He in a way of kind of saying that he wanted to animate them. It's the same with Gein. He wanted to animate those women by manipulating and desecrating their bodies. They both did the same thing. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. It's not interesting. It's disgusting. And it's also pathetic and about control. It's all about control. And if you try to make it into something that it's not, and that you try to create layers and say, oh, this person's more complex, we should feel sorry for them, then I can't really disagree with you any more than I am right now. It's not how it is. And it doesn't have to be made, it's not any more interesting if you bring in that element to it. What's interesting is understanding the simple, pathetic, fragile personalities that we're dealing with, and how they've been around for a long time, they're still here now, we still have to deal with them, but let's call it for what it is. It's fragile male ego. Okay? So If any of this resonated with you, then hit the like. If you're interested to follow more of my content, then please hit the subscribe button, and I will see you again soon.